There is a nice statement in the Vishnu Purana where it is said, simply by remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all living entities become eligible for all kinds of auspiciousness. Therefore, let me always remember the Lord, who is unborn and eternal. In the Padma Purana, the same remembrance is explained as follows. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Krishna, because if someone remembers him, either at the time of death or during the span of life, he becomes freed from all sinful reactions. Just remembering him. Which actually, we've got a lot more to remember than people that just believe in God. So before I came in contact with Srila Prabhupada's books, I used to pray, and I wasn't quite sure what I was praying to. Somebody with long hair, long white hair, and a beard and a white robe on, hanging around in the clouds with sandals on. That was about as much as I could sum it up as a child. I knew there was somebody there, at least I thought there was, but it wasn't very clear. So now we have the ability, at least the opportunity, not the ability, to have some faith that God is there and that he is a blue cowhead boy with skin that is so soft that when you touch it with newly grown grass, it changes color. And I was just reading this morning, actually, that Lord Brahma came down to offer his prayers, and Krishna was so into being in his pastime that he was looking at Lord Brahma and he was thinking, who is this? Why is he coming down? Why is he disturbing everything? Why has he got 4 heads? He was kind of puzzled, you know, and he was like, I wish he would just go away so that I can get on with playing with my friends, you know. So so that gives us a glimpse into who God is and what he's like, what his personality is like. We're more interested in the personality than the Supreme Godhead. The Supreme Godhead is there, and we have awe and reverence and respect, but our main concern is the personality of Godhead. And that personality likes to forget that he's God. Cast aside his Godhead and engage in loving pastimes. It's also the disappearance day of Kaliya Krishna Das. And do you have the section there, yeah? Kaliya Krishna Das, a great devotee in the Lord Chaitanya's life. Nothing there? Just a little, okay. So, Sri Kaliya Krishna Das. One will surely attain Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda simply by remembering Kaliya Krishna Das. Completely devoted to Lord Nityananda, Kaliya Krishna Das knew nothing but his lotus feet. He left his body while doing bhajan in Vrindavan. He is Mahabala in Krishna Balaram's pastimes. Shri Kaliya Krishna Das ki. Mahabala, the cowhead boy Mahabala. Because the cowhead boys were all on Lord Nityananda, with Lord Nityananda, and the Manjaris and the Gopis were all with Lord Chaitanya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 10. In Budapest right now, they have 250 sets of Bhagavatams, and the Tana distribute them on the street. And just a couple of days ago, one man came up to one of the lady devotees and said, I'd like to give you 100,000 forint. It was about £400. And so she said, I'd like to give you a set of Bhagavatams. Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. They asked Mahotsav Prabhu in Atlanta, how do you do sets of Bhagavatams? And he said, it's not what you say, it's what you pray. This is text 15 and 17, isn't it? Okay, so it's a long one. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just run through it once and then everybody else can try it, okay? Shri Pradruvacha Varamvaraya Etate Vadadeshan Maheshvara Yadani Dat Pita Me Tvam Avidhams Teja Avishvaram Vidama Shashaya Shakshat Savaloka Gurum Prabhu Brate Heti Mrishadrishtasis Tvad Bhakti Maik Chagavan Tasma Pita Me Pujeta Duranta Dushtara Agat Mutaste Pangasam Rishta Tada Kripanavatsala Vacham Varambaye Haritate Vadadeshan Maheshwara Yadadinat Pitame Panvidam Steja Eshwaram Vidamashaya Shakshad Savaloka Gurum Prabhum Pratiheta Mitash Tristis Tvad Bhakte Maya Chagavan Jeta Tuttarakara Aste Bhakta Vacha Te Adesham Nareshwara Adesham Nareshwara Shakshat Loka Barum Barum Abhishin Brahmai Chagava Tasmat Pita Mai Puyeta Tantu Stadadagat Uchaste Panga Samdristas Tada Kripana Vatsala Shiparada Uvacha Prahlad Maharaj said, Varam, benediction, Variye, I pray, Etat, this, Te, from you, Varada Ishat, the Supreme Personality of Godhead who offers benedictions even to such exalted demigods as Brahma and Shiva. Maha Ishvara, O my Supreme Lord, Yat, that, Anidat, vilified, Pita, Father, Me, my, Tvam, you, Avidvan, without knowledge of, Teja, strength, Aishvaram, supremacy, Vida, being polluted, Amasha, with anger, Ashaya, within the heart, Shakshat, directly, Savaloka Gurum, unto the Supreme Spiritual Master of all living beings. Prabhum, unto the Supreme Master. Bratraha, the killer of his brother. Iti, thus, Mishadristi, falsely envious because of a false conception. Tva Bhakte, unto your devotee, Mai, unto me, Cha, and Agavan, who committed heavily sinful activities, Tasmat, from that, Pita, father, may, my, Puyeta, may be purified, Durantat, very great, Dustarat, difficult to pass over, Agat, from all sinful activities, Puta, although he was purified, Te, of you, Apanga, by the glance over him, Sadrishta, being looked at, Haribo, Tada, at that time, Kripanavatsala, O you who are merciful to the materialistic. Prahlad Maharaj said, O Supreme Lord, because you are so merciful to the fallen souls, I ask you for only one benediction. I know that my father, at the time of his death, had already been purified by your glance upon him, but because of his ignorance of your beautiful power and supremacy, he was unnecessarily angry at you, falsely thinking that you were the killer of his brother. Thus he directly blasphemed your lordship, the spiritual master of all living beings, and committed heavily sinful activities directed against me. Your devotee. I wish that he be excused from these sinful activities. But by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Although Hiranyakashipu was purified as soon as he came in contact with the Lord's lap, and the Lord saw him, Prahlad Maharaj, with the Lord's lap, in contact with the Lord's lap, and the Lord saw him, Prahlad Maharaj still wanted to hear from the Lord's own mouth that his father had been purified by the Lord's causeless mercy. Prahlad Maharaj offered this prayer to the Lord for the sake of his father. As a Vaishnava's son, despite all the inconveniences imposed upon him by his father, he could not forget his father's affection. Om Jnana Shaganandjana Shalakaya Chakshunmanitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchikalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Paritanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So please try to stay with me, Prabhus. Knock 3 times if you're with the living. Knock 3 times if you're with the living. So there's an interesting printout in one devotee went to a Hovelim, and he did this little article. He went around all the 9 temples. When Lord Nrsimhadev appears, he has 9 different forms that he manifests. Ugram, Vira, Mahavishnu, Jvalantam, Savatamakam, Nisingam, Vishanam, Bhadram, Michum, Namiham. So there's 9 different moods he goes into. Eventually he goes into a very kind mood. But when he first comes out, he's in a very angry mood, Ugram. Anyway, so the article was saying that as soon as Hiranyakashipu went onto the lap of Lord Nrsimhadev, he remembered he was it Vijay? I think it was Vijay. He remembered anyway his swarup, and as the Lord was opening up his abdomen, he only felt bliss. He was just so happy to be in the pastime and facilitating the Lord's pleasure. So to us it looks gruesome, and it looks but from the point of view of the devotee, whatever gives pleasure to the Lord gives pleasure to the devotee as well. Can anybody think of any examples which don't seem very pleasing to us at the time, but after we've done them, we feel pleased because we know it gave the Lord satisfaction? Only 5? Yeah. So, do you feel pleasure at any point in that experience? So that's one. That is definitely one difficult one to deal with. And following the regular principles of time can be difficult, especially no illicit sex, especially when some of the Welsh boys right now, they're traveling around and they're staying in like bed and breakfast, calmy places. And I always found that very difficult. We had a motorhome so we could kind of remove ourselves. But when you're in and you're sleeping on beds that have been used by mundane people for mundane things, and you're trying to stay aloof from everything around you, it's very difficult to do that. So at least if we prepare our food, and one of the benefits of rising early, actually, it's very difficult to train ourselves to rise early. Probably the first and foremost austerity, which will bring so much pleasure later on. But at the time when we wake up and our bed is there and it's so warm, and we poke our nose out from underneath the clothes and it's so cold, and the last thing we want to do. But if we can push to rise early, then after that everything is downhill. The greatest challenge is, can you rise early? Can you rise and read before you go to Mangalarti, especially? You can rise at 3, read for an hour, go to Mangalarti and chant your japa, assimilating Shastra that's percolating around in the back of the mind. It's a very, very powerful sadhana. And if a devotee can establish himself in those austerities, they will lead to the greatest bliss, to the point where when the alarm clock goes off, immediately you wake and you're thinking, well, I'm going to be able to read what happened in that past time. Personally, I'm reading Bhagvatam. I'm on 10th canto. CCM in the Majjhila and Bhagavad Gita. And as soon as I get to the end, I just start again. And I just go around. I've been going around the books for 40 years. I just keep going around them. And what I'm experiencing personally now is that the books are taking me to the places that they're describing. You know, I'm in Naimisharanya, Amikur, etc., or I'm in Navadvip or Jagannath Puri. So these are the benefits that eventually we start to experience, but they may not be there immediately. And so also too with one of the hard things with Sankirtan is the time factor. When you initially start, and then it seems like it's going to be a tough day, and the mind will project, well, it was really tough those last 5 minutes, and I've got another 4 hours and 55 minutes to go. So I've got 4 hours and 55 minutes of at least this bad and probably worse. And the mind can be so strong that it'll project that belief. And if you believe it, then you'll reinforce it with your experience. So sometimes what's helpful to do is, if you're finding it difficult on Sankirtan, break the Sankirtan time down into hours. And then for that hour, okay, I didn't do many books that hour, that's fine. Here comes the next hour. Let's see what I can do in this hour. And then we break the day down into 5 intervals. Maybe in between we can read or we could chant around, and then we start the next hour, and then we go to the next hour like this. And that way we break it down. That way it's easier to navigate through time, you know. So that's one thing that can help. Another is that when you're on Sankirtan, the person that you're preaching to, certainly initially, is yourself. So when you stop somebody, you can say, oh, by the way, we have these books. They're all about how to get through 5 hours of hell and make you still feel really happy, and just appreciate that it's actually a great privilege to be able to do something, to do some sacrifice. Helps you to gain a taste for sacrifice and appreciate the benefits of it. And so that you're actually preaching to yourself, but you're doing it through them, you know. And then they're like, oh, okay, that sounds interesting. Maybe I'll read the book, you know. And we have to be kind of analytical of what's going on during the course of the day as well. If it's not going so well, then maybe we need to change. We need to change the approach. We need to get louder. We need to get happier. We need to be more animated, because it's not working right now. So we have to be able to do that. Not that I always do this. I did this yesterday and it worked. It may not work. It does not seem to be working today. I will keep on doing it anyway. Hello, I am a monk. How are you? Oh, 5 hours have gone. I've only done 50p. What happened there? It can become a little bit mechanical like that. We kind of desensitize ourselves, switch off to what's going on around us, and then we're just trying to get through the day. That becomes the only objective. No other goal than that. So if we can come in contact with Krishna, then everything can change, as did with Hiranyakashipu, although externally it looked very austere, what he was going through. Imagine if that was our service, right? We're going to do a marathon, and it'll culminate in you're going to have to lie on the lap of Lord Nrsingadev and let him take your intestines out. Everyone okay with it? You okay with that? You think the marathon's austere? But it wasn't austere for Hiranyakashipu, because as soon as he came in contact with Lord Nrsingadev, his perception of what was going on changed. So we may not be able to change what's going on around us, but we can change the perception of what's going on around us. Just like one very famous person said, it's not what happens to you that hurts you, it's how you react to what happens to you that really hurts you. And if you can react in the right way, then it doesn't have to have that snowball effect. Like when on Sankirtan, if you don't do very well for the first hour, you can have this kind of snowball effect where we just become more and more convinced that no one's going to help, that we're not going to be able to pull it off. We're not really qualified to do this. So there's nowhere to hide actually on Sankirtan. It's just like the naked truth, the moment of truth when you ask them to help, and everything seemed great, and then you ask them for help, and they don't want to engage, and we have to take full responsibility. Well, they didn't engage because of me, because I didn't convince them. I can't blame anybody else, which is generally what we like to do, isn't it? We like to blame. We don't want to take it ourselves. We have to blame somebody else. But on Sankirtan, you can't blame anybody else. You could say, well, it's the area, it's the weather, it's the time of the year. But if other devotees are there and they're doing well, then it's harder to hide behind excuses, you know. And so how do we address that? How do we become more able to connect and enchant people to trust us and to comply with what we want them to do? Any questions or comments? Yes, Jayananda? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh.
Thank you, Guru. So I've heard that when in devotional service or when we're trying to become more advanced, we have to feel some remorse to progress. So I'm thinking, like, when we approach people on the street and we have an interaction and it doesn't go so well, should we feel some remorse then? It was like, we had one Harinam a few weeks ago, and there was one lady that joined us. But the whole time she was going to come to the program, and then we carried on and she didn't join and didn't come to the program. So I'm thinking, like, a situation like this, should we feel some remorse? Or should we just think, well, it's Krishna's arrangement and not bother about it?
Well, it's a really nice book. It's by Dhanavir Maharaj. It's called The Bright Side. And it says, nobody of any significance achieved anything of any value by being discouraged. So if we offer people an opportunity, and for whatever reason they don't accept it, at least they were offered an opportunity. So if we become discouraged and think, oh, what's the point? Why should I go out? Well, if you don't go out, then nobody gets an opportunity. Even if it's a failed opportunity, at least they get an opportunity. And just the fact that they come in contact with the devotee, they hear the sound vibration of a person following the principles who has love for Prabhupada in his heart, that in itself is a very significant benediction although they don't actually engage, but they go away with a favorable impression, and possibly they'll get a human form in their next life. So that's a significant contribution to the Sankirtan movement, although it's not manifesting in terms of results, But we have to start off from some platform that we can maintain. So our pledge is our wedge. So initially the pledge is just, look, I'm going to go out. I'll show up for it. Can't guarantee anything else, but I will touch the pavement with my foot. I can guarantee that. I'll do that. So that's your wedge, and the edge of a wedge is usually very, very fine. But when you hammer the wedge, it goes in a little bit further, and then it becomes one book. I'm going to do at least one book. And you start with what you can do. You know you can do that. Oh, you have done that in the past. So you think, okay, I'm not going to try and do 1,000 books. I'm just going to try and do one book. That's how these high jump people eventually do very high jumps. They start off with something that they can clear very easily, and they just raise it by 1 inch, and then another inch. And then over a period of a few months, it's gone from 3 feet to like 15 feet. And every time they manage to clear it, because it's only 1 inch more than it was before, you see. So if you can do one book, great. So now then let's try and do 2 books. And if we feel uncomfortable about asking for big amounts, then we can ask for small amounts. And we're okay with that. Can you help with some change? Can you give £1? And then we build up to 5, and then 10, and then 20, and then maybe 50 or 100, So remorse is okay. In the bright side, he says there that Daniel Morris says a little bit of remorse is okay, because if that springs us into a more enthusiastic endeavor, then that's fine. But if it's so much remorse that we become incapacitated and paralyzed, paralysis through analysis, we overanalyze everything. We decide that we're responsible for everyone going to hell, and it's our fault, and we should just disappear from the creation in a puff of smoke. Then obviously that's too much remorse. If it's unfavorable, then we have to drop it. If it's favorable, then fine. If it makes you more enthusiastic, if it doesn't, drop it. You have to protect your enthusiasm. Whatever's enthusing you right now, maybe your spiritual master's enthusing you. You want to do this to try and please him. Then that's great. So don't allow anything to infringe upon that. Don't allow any association to undermine your faith, especially your faith in Prabhupada. We were just reading last night in Shuddhabhati Chintamani. There's 2 factions that threaten being a Prabhupada Nuga: Gaudiya Mat and Ritvik. Gaudiya Mat because they want to supplant, or at least share, the position of ultimate authority with the founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada. None of us would have taken to Krishna consciousness if it wasn't for Prabhupada in his books. And because of that, we're indebted, and we should stay chaste to Srila Prabhupada's society. But others may have come across Krishna consciousness through some other means, and so then obviously they will feel that their mat is the one that they feel indebted to. But then when they start to antagonize and infiltrate and undermine Prabhupada's position as the founder, then it becomes antagonistic. Good fences make good neighbors. Then we have to say sorry. And with Ritviks, so Ritviks open up a Pandora's box that anyone can approach Prabhupada now and be his initiated disciple. But why just Prabhupada? Why not Rupa Goswami? Why Rupa Goswami? Why not just Lord Chaitanya himself? Why Lord Chaitanya? Why not just Krishna? Just go, I'm an initiated disciple of Krishna. You can use the same process as the Ritviks are using with Srila Prabhupada. And also Srila Prabhupada, his fidelity to what the Acharyas and our previous spiritual masters and scriptures have said, was that he would follow and he would attribute all his success to his Guru Maharaj. So if we truly want to be a follower of Srila Prabhupada, then why would we twist in some of the philosophy now that are actually Prabhupada's special, and he can contravene all the Shastric injunctions, which actually isn't praising Prabhupada at all. It's actually an insult to Srila Prabhupada. And the Ritviks have this logo. It says, Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON. You've got ISKCON, which is the bogus ISKCON, and then you've got the real ISKCON, which is Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON. That's what they are saying. So when we take up Krishna consciousness and we have our enthusiasm and our faith in Srila Prabhupada, don't take it for granted that you will always have that. It will come under threat. And people will infiltrate and try to undermine that faith and that enthusiasm that we have, you know. Shishikonitai Mai Pashashiki Jai. So that was a bit of a long answer, wasn't it, for your question? Any of the Jananda, you got a question about Sankirtan? Are you okay with Sankirtan? No problems. Yeah.
So in the verses, Prahlad Maharaj has got this very compassionate nature, very forgiving nature. It's also something we should try to develop in Sankirtan, right? You know, we're trying to be compassionate, giving out the books, and if someone's blasphemers on the street, we need to forgive them.
Yeah. And this came up actually in Hungary, in Budapest. One of the devotees was asking about, you know, should we qualify people first for compassion? And I remember that story of, I think it's in nonviolent communication. A lady had a 12-year-old son, and he was stabbed to death. And in America, you're allowed to see the murderer and give him a piece of your mind before he gets sentenced. And that's exactly what she was going to do. So she came into the room, and the boy was sitting like this, with both his knees. And he was on the floor like this. And he was going to be spending the rest of his life in prison. And she walked into the room, and she saw him, and immediately she realized he was somebody else's son. And somebody else loved him just as much as she loved her son. And she said to him, "Do you mind if I give you a hug?" Which she wasn't expecting to say, but the compassion just came up in her heart, you know, that this is someone else's child. For whatever reason he did it, he's going to regret it for the rest of his life. And this wasn't really what he wanted. Nobody really wants those things to happen. And then when they do, everyone is surprised, you know. So the nature of compassion is that it doesn't have to have a reason. That is what real compassion is. It's because showing compassion for somebody that deserves compassion is kind of expected. But what isn't expected is that we've been shown compassion when we didn't really deserve it. So how can we do anything else other than show compassion to others, you know, that also don't deserve it? So as we make advancement, as we become more purified, then the heart becomes softer, and then naturally we will naturally feel more compassion. That will just be the byproduct of advancing in devotional service. That love, that pure love that we're cultivating, when it comes up, then the humility comes with it, the compassion comes with it, the sensitivity, the empathy, all these qualities, they naturally well up in the heart, because they are all there actually. Every living entity is part and parcel of Krishna. And Krishna's compassionate nature is personified by Srimati Radharani. So we want to come in contact with Radharani, but not by putting on a sari and running around saying, I'm a manjari, but by going out and experiencing the compassion that Lord Chaitanya in the mood of Radharani has for the fallen souls in Kali Yuga. Then we're part of the movement. If people don't, Shiv Ramaj was saying that if somebody joins ISKCON and they never go out on book distribution, they don't really know what it's about. You don't really, you know, you can sit there reading about Gopi Leela all day, but you won't really understand what that compassion is, what that mood of Radharani is, unless you go out and distribute books, you know. And then if you do get some really, really special mercy, then you'll see how much they are suffering and how much you're being favored, because we don't always appreciate it. Sometimes we're thinking they're the ones that are being favored, and I'm the one that's suffering. I'm out here all day. I've got a hole in my shoe. I didn't get enough prasadam this morning. The terminal president shouted at me, and nobody likes me. And so everyone should feel sorry for me, actually. Should feel, whereas you're okay, you've got a nice pair of shoes, you've got loads of money in your pocket, got a pretty girlfriend, a fantastic car. I'm the one that's suffering. You're doing great, you know. And then the mercy comes when you start to realize, actually, okay, so maybe not a lot of people are taking books for whatever reason. I've got to go through some process of purification. But I have faith that if I continue on, I'll eventually get there, you know. I just have to keep pushing on and keep praying, and it's just a question of time. Then if we get the special mercy, then we feel compassion because we realize, at least I know what the goal of life is, what the meaning of life is. I know where everything is emanated from to some degree. I'm in contact also with great souls who are fully aware of their relationship with Krishna. And somehow or other I'm here. What a wonderful privilege. It's like winning the spiritual lottery. And these all are unfortunate souls. They're all running around and they're trying to make the goal of life buy an Uncle Ken and aftershave kit, you know. And could you imagine reading that in the scriptures, right? We've just found the most ancient Vedic scriptures, and this section is the meaning of life. Go to TK Maxx and buy Uncle Ken aftershave. Wow. That's the goal of life. I never realized it, you know. So you can imagine how frustrated, and at the time of death, they're going to look back on everything that they've done. You know, these people that have near-death experiences, they say that at the point when they're dying, their whole life just goes right before them. Everything, they just say everything in just a few seconds. And then they look at it and think, I didn't do anything of any value, didn't do any spiritual things, just a total waste of time, you know. So that's real suffering. And we want to look back on our life that, wow, I'm so fortunate I came in contact when I was young, and I tried. I had so much prasadam. I went to so many Mangalatis. I had so many scriptures. I chanted so many holy names. I passed out so many books. I put so many Garanga stickers up on so many lampposts, or whatever it is, you know. And the forefathers are watching as well. So when you're out there and you're doing the Yoga Dharma, all the forefathers are like, wow, fantastic. You know, he's liberating everybody, not just himself, but so many forefathers in the past and so many in the future. Any other questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, bro. Sometimes in book distribution, there
Hare
could
Krishna.
be the pressure of like score-wise in terms of Lakshmi, and the focus could be, oh, I'm not getting much Lakshmi, or I need to bring more and more Lakshmi. So what should be the right mood? Lakshmi is definitely important, but what should be the mood so that I don't go with the mood worrying about Lakshmi rather than preaching and distributing the message of Bhagavad Gita?
Yeah, the problem isn't the Lakshmi. The problem is how we see the Lakshmi. That's the problem. Because we see the Lakshmi as money that I could use for my sense gratification. If I had that money, I would use it this way. And we want to see the Lakshmi as their opportunity to render service, you know. So that is the challenge. Can you ask for Lakshmi? And at the same time, the furthest thing from your mind is money. I remember we had a really consistently big Sankirtan devotee in Scotland for a while called Prabhupada Charan. And he used to say, when you're on Sankirtan, you have to hit them clean. And what it means is, if you're like, do you think you could help with a donation? You know, then that's not hitting them clean. Because you're afraid, because you're attached to the Lakshmi as a means of sense gratification, that attachment comes up, and the attachment causes fear and hesitancy. And then when you're asking them, because it's kind of squeamish the way you're doing it, then that makes them feel uncomfortable and suspicious about the whole thing. Whereas if you would imagine going to a person, right, on Sankirtan, you say, excuse me, could we put you down for an hour in the temple room tomorrow? There'll be a bucket there and a cloth, and all you got to do is just wipe the floor. It'll take about an hour. Are you okay? Now, are you okay for that, John? Okay, John. 1 hour's service, washing the floor. There'd be no squeamishness about that, just because it's safer, you know. Wow, you're gonna wash the floor. You're gonna get so much benefit for doing that. But if it's 100 quid, suddenly the whole mood changes. So how can we see Lakshmi as safer? Then we won't be. We won't have a problem, you know. It's like you come back and, how do you do today? I got 100 people to promise to come on Sunday and do an hour service. How about yourself? I only got 3 people. Well, that's okay. 3 people. It's 3 hours service. Fantastic. You know, it's not got that same mundane feel to it, you know. So we take these mundane conceptions with us from our previous conditioned life. And so that's the way we see Lakshmi. We see Lakshmi as sense gratification, and taking people's sense gratification away from them is cruel. That's a cruel thing. You know, why are you doing that? That person could have used that money to go and buy some whiskey, and you've taken it off him to use it in Krishna's service. That's a bit cruel, isn't it? I mean, he deserves all the sense gratification he can get. You know, he's been working hard for it. If he wants to get a bottle of whiskey, you know, you should let him do it. What are you interfering with that for? So this is all our mundane idea of what being good is and what being cruel is, and we're getting it turned completely upside down, you know. So that recalibration can be a little bit disorientating until we're really, really strongly fixed, and we have that faith. What do you think, Jayananda? We have that faith that when we ask them to engage in devotional service, there's not a problem with that. It's good. It's good to engage people in service. The more you can engage them, the better, for their eternal benefit. Just like Ram was, he came to take Sita away from Ravan, right? So somebody could have said, you know, why are you being so cruel to Ravan? You know, he's worked really hard for that Lakshmi. Shouldn't you just let him stay with Lakshmi? No, the Lakshmi doesn't belong to him. The Lakshmi belongs to Ram. We want to take the Lakshmi and put the Lakshmi back with Ram. Sita should go back in the hands of Ram. She shouldn't be in the hands of... These people shouldn't have the money in the first place. You know, in the Vedic culture, the Shudras were never given money. Because what does a Shudra spend money on? Intoxication and prostitution. That's what he spends it on. So they shouldn't be given, they should be given facility, nice housing, clothing, a little bit of education, and the money should stay with the Vaishyas. They'll invest it and use it nicely. But too much money is going out into the hands of the Shudras, and that's why all this nonsense is being bought. So much junk and garbage, the money's being wasted on, you know. So the Lakshmi shouldn't be in the hands of the Shudra in the first place. And if the Lakshmi was in the hands of the Brahmins, then the Brahmins would be using the Lakshmi properly anyway. The Kshatriyas would be using it properly anyway. And the Vaishyas would be using it properly anyway. They'd be investing it. And then the Vaishya is like a cloud. He draws up all the moisture and then he scatters the rain indiscriminately. Once it's all been brought in, then he generates. That's what's supposed to happen. That's the ideal system. Any questions or comments? What do we find so difficult? Sorry, yeah.
Sometimes I do door to door, Prabhu. So door to door, how to not get in this consciousness that, okay, I'm like another salesman, people who ring up. So how to not get in this consciousness that I'm not just like a salesman and I'm not here for sales. The mood for...
Yeah, this is from, a devotee asked that question of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he said, I'll find it later if I can't find it right. Oh, actually, it won't come up there, but it may come up if I say prostitute. I think it's this one. No. So he said that when a devotee goes out to collect bhaksha on behalf of his spiritual master, And there may be other people that are also collecting money for all kinds of dubious reasons. And he said, when a prostitute is greeting a customer, she can look more attractive and more alluring than the chaste wife. The chaste wife's waiting for her husband to come home. And compared to the prostitute looks much more attractive than the chaste wife. He said, but examine the intention. He said, the intention of the wife is exalted like the sky. And he said, and look at the intention of the prostitute, it's subterraneanly low. So the activity may be the same. Like we do the rock concerts, and one of the things I found the most austere was you had to be in line with other people who were telling lies, who were using the money for drugs and all kinds of things, and you'd have to just wait your turn, and it would seem like just the same thing. Hi, we're just collecting donations today for, but we were actually telling the truth, and they were saying, hi, we're collecting donations to help for this and that, and they weren't. It was all going to just go to them, so they were cheating people. And so after a while, you start feeling like, well, am I not just the same as them? So you have to really, no, because all the Lakshmi that they give, I'm not keeping it. I'm actually going to use it, and it will be for their eternal benefit. Whereas the Lakshmi they give to this person, it won't do them any good. Charity in the mode of ignorance doesn't do the person who gave it any good. It doesn't do the person they give it to any good. The whole thing is inauspicious from the word go, And we're in amongst them, rubbing shoulders with them. So Bhaktisiddhanta said, understand that your intention is exalted and theirs is subterraneanly low. So we have to be very clear on that. Well, what are we doing when they give the Lakshmi? Immediately we're going to be giving it to be used in the service of the Lord, In so many ways they'll benefit from that. So I have a question. Why is it sometimes then that it seems when we're having a difficult day, why do we find it hard to snap out of it? It's like it's a bit like you feel yourself going down a slippery slope, and you realize where the slope's going to not doing very much in terms of the result, and you're trying to change the direction, but as it goes on, it just seems to gain momentum, and you go further and further down the slippery slope, and then you don't do very well. At the end of the day, you've not done very well at all. So how do we safeguard against sliding down the slippery slope? How would you do that? Or pray?
Pray or speak with one senior devotee and get some advice, something like that.
Send your Guru Maharaj a message.
Yeah, if he's not too busy.
Help! Or in the evening, Guru Maharaj didn't do so well today. I did that just the other week, and it was just like I got these really nice 4 instructions, from Guru Maharaj, and the next day was like day and night, it was just like so different. And it was good that I went through that experience, because it put me in such a dependable situation. I was completely like bowled over by the circumstances, and on bended knee I was begging for help, because I didn't feel like I could pull it off. And then the instructions came, like the 10 Commandments, and the next day I felt like Guru Maharaj was just sitting right by me, and I was just following it, and everything was just like amazing, It was just so different. So we part of the process is sometimes we have to get leveled. We have to be completely like smashed, and then we're like, look, I can't do this. Please help me. Show me what to do, And then the mercy comes when we're in that mood, Whereas if we have some material ability, maybe we can talk in a fancy way, or we can do something, or we have a face that people are attracted to, like a film star, very charismatic, and people are just like, oh, what would you like me to do? Oh, okay, I'll do that, because we have some karma there, but if we don't, and we're just completely dependent upon mercy, there's no reason why a person would want to stop and help us from just the way we are.
if someone's got such good karma that they can rely on that, how would they ever get into a place where they're depending on the mercy of Krishna when they're just relying on the karma that they've got?
Well, the karma, good and bad karma, eventually gets bent up, especially very quickly in the Sankirtan Yuga. When it gets bent up, then the test is that if a devotee's been very successful for a few years and suddenly there's no result, does he have the strength to continue on? Or does he decide now, okay, I'm going to desist because for whatever reason now, my good looks and my fancy voice is not working anymore, you know? So in some ways, it's safer to start off difficult and break through into being good than starting off good. Then it becomes difficult and then we become bewildered, you know? And we thought that we were much more advanced than everybody else. And then suddenly, a few years later, everybody else is way, way ahead of us because it wasn't that austere for us to do it. It was quite easy. We just went up, cracked a couple of jokes, and that went $100. No big hassle, you know. And we're thinking, we must be way, way advanced than these. And these other devotees are struggling like crazy, you know. They just, you know, because of the mode of nature that they're in and the kind of body they've got and the voice they've got and just their personality, it's like so tough to break over all that, override it all and do it, you know. But by trying, they get strong, and then eventually they'll be able to do it. It could take a little while, but it's guaranteed if you continue on, you will get there, you know. You just don't desist, you just keep going, and eventually there's a breakthrough. And then it's like, okay, and then we just try and keep that memory and do the same thing again, you know. Gauri Devi Dasi, one of the biggest book distributors, she struggled so much in the beginning. And what kept her going was she looked around at all the devotees and they were like really blissful, most of them. And she was thinking, why is it that they can get into it like anything and I can't? And then she thought one day, if they can do it, I can do it. I just need Krishna's mercy. They've obviously already got it. I need to get it. And she said that was the day that her Sankirtan career turned. And she went from just doing a few books to being the biggest book distributor. And after that, she said, I had no problem approaching people, being friendly and really meaning it, and engaging a lot of people. Suddenly, she just got off that mental platform, and she was able to just get into it, you know. But that was the turning point. She just thought, if they can do it, if they can get Krishna's mercy, I can get Krishna's mercy as well, you know. I just have to get Krishna's mercy. It's like that when you're chanting as well. We try and do the chanting so much, we try and get involved in it, we try and say it and try and hear it and try and, if we can just let the mantra go through us and don't do anything, just let the mantra. Shivraj has just been saying, it's amazing actually how japa works because you just need to hear one thing and it can fire you up for weeks, you know, if you hear something about the holy name. So I heard this thing, Shivraj was saying that when there's a kirtan, there's a high tide of mercy that comes, and he says when you're in a high tide, when the water starts coming in, imagine if there was a flood, right? They open the temple room door and the water starts coming in, and first of all it's just here, and then as it starts to come up, you know, it gets over 6 feet, suddenly you're afloat. You leave all the worries, all the mental problems behind. You're just there up on this high tide. So the holy name is like that. If you can not interfere with it and just let it come in, just let the mantra come in, eventually it lifts you above the mental platform, and all the things that you're trying to figure out and work out, suddenly it doesn't matter anymore. Your feet leave the ground and you're suspended by the high tide of the holy name. And then, well, that's a really nice meditation when you're chanting. Just let the mantra come in. Don't interfere with it. Don't try and control it. Just accept that all I've got to do is hear it. Prabhupada said, when they said, what should we think of when we chant Hare Krishna? And Prabhupada said, the chanting is the thinking. So there is no other thought. It's just, we just let go of all the thoughts. We stop thinking and we just chant. We just go with the names. Everything is like that actually. With the Sankirtan as well, we get mental because we're so much trying to figure things out rather than just allow things to flow, you know, become very kind of spontaneous. It takes a while to get the hang of that, but it's really good when you do, you know, and then the books are going out like anything, and then suddenly you start thinking, wow, what did I say again? And you start trying to analyze it, and then you come down again. You have to just let it happen, let the mercy flow through you, and don't take the credit for it. Iskon Govinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanandi Haribo Prashadam Ki Jai.